What is happening, Bitcoin accumulation country? I'm your host, Coin Icarus. This is the Fun with Bitcoin podcast, sponsored by CryptoCloaks 3D Printing, and we are in Season 3. This is episode 41. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope everybody's having a great week. I sat down and had a super cool conversation with ArthurVanPelt, or as he is known on Twitter, at My Legacy Kit. Now, for the people who don't know who Arthur is, Arthur has been following the BSV drama from the beginning and has managed to get some of the, I would say, some of the top information out of that case. And he's done a great job of putting it all together legibly. And anyways, super happy to have him on the show, sit down, talk to him about that, and talk about some other things that really have nothing to do with BSV, because a lot of people mostly focus on Arthur's work with BSV and instead of just, kind of taking a look at the man himself. And that's kind of what we did in our podcast. So we are going to dive right into that. But before we do, we're going to talk about some dollar cost averaging and Swan Bitcoin. For anybody who is interested in dollar cost averaging and who wants to be purchasing Bitcoin but doesn't want to be spending their time constantly watching the charts and listening to traders that they really have no idea whether these people are credible or not, and you kind of just want to put this in a passive sleep mode where you're simply just accumulating and hodling, being able to transfer that Bitcoin out to your own private address. So if you're interested in doing that and that falls in your wheelhouse, then you are looking for Swan Bitcoin. With Swan Bitcoin, the three main takeaways are we can do automatic withdrawal from a bank account, automatic purchases of BTC. You can time them based on your when you receive your check. You can do it let's say once you can do it once a month, or you can do it per pay period as well. There's lots of options for you to be able to customize how you purchase. And you could automatically withdraw to your chosen address. So if you're interested in a Bitcoin-only platform that is doing the great work of helping onboard people, then you definitely want to check out Swan Bitcoin. I'm going to have the link to their website in the show notes. So sit back, it's time to chill, and check out my awesome chat with ArthurVanPelt at My Legacy Kit. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I have with me a very special guest who has been following the Craig Wright faketoshi whole situation. I'd say since the beginning, and has followed it closely. I'd say more closely than anybody. I have with me ArthurVanPelt, or on Twitter at My Legacy Kit, and a lot of times, so first of all, welcome to the Fun with Bitcoin podcast.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to have you here. This is really cool. You've done, a lot of research, and a lot of times, people talk about, that aspect of it, but I really want to find out a little bit more about you. I'd like to know how you got into Bitcoin, and like how did we get here now?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I learned about Bitcoin in 2012. I always say the same story, and I know I remember it was in April, because it was the same month that my son was born, our firstborn. I did not do anything with Bitcoin at that moment, but I slowly start looking at the space. And in 2013, I still remember that little jump. Also, I think around April or May in that year. And a little after that, I dipped my toe in Bitcoin. And of course, then the big jump in from October, November, December. What happened then? Crazy stuff then. And what brought me here. Talking about Craig Wright, I think I remember I learned about the guy already in 2015, because that is when he started to enter the Bitcoin space. And I did not pay too much attention to him, only when he was later that year. He did a self-dox in Wired and Gizmodo. Then make a quick jump to early last year, when the guy started to sue, especially Peter McCormack and Hoddlenaut. And when he put $5,000 on Hoddlenaut's head, yeah, that enraged me quite a bit. And that's where I started to ramp up my postings and research into the scammery of this guy.
So, okay, but let me ask you this, right? Why? I mean, like, everybody's fascinated with the whole saga, right? Of Craig Wright and Calvin and all of this total scam. Um, why did you choose to actually dive into it like this? Like, what
Yeah,
is it? What is it about this?
no, I think it's a bit in my nature. I cannot stand injustice so much. Like I said, Hoddlenaut is a big inspiration here. And if you dive into the details a bit, it has a hilarious side. I mean, this guy is so totally crazy with all the things that he is doing, all these sloppy forgeries that he is making, that even a relative amateur that I am can break through them and see what he's doing. And then it is so amazing that he manages to get a following, that he built his BSV cult, that there are people believing in him and pumping money in him. It's so totally crazy that it becomes like you're fascinated by looking a train derailing.
Yeah, exactly. You're watching a train wreck.
Yeah, that's it.
So, okay, so I have to ask you, have you ever been, I guess, approached by anybody from BSV and threatened for the work that you're doing?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, I have to say, it. The closest thing that I had, and that at that moment I was not really worried, and only when I talk with people later, it started to worry me a little. And on the other hand, I'm kind of, yeah, let's call it relentless and fearless. But there was a guy actually saying that I'm gonna die, and that was not so nice to hear. But it did not stop me. And there were also people threatening with knives and stabbing and stuff like that. But yeah, somehow I choose it. I mean, I'm not doxing myself my address, but if you are going to look for it, it's not so hard to find. On the other hand, also, so I kind of choose to do it the way that I do, just to show that I'm not going to be run over by those criminals and by those crazy people from that community. Yeah. Will
That
it ever happen? Actually, the what might happen at some point is that they're going to sue me for libel and defamation, what they did with Peter McCormack and Vitalik and Adam Back and etc. etc. It all went nowhere, so I expect that also to happen if they ever try me. So come on.
yeah,
But
that's
no, yeah, I'm not looking for it. Or I mean, I have a family, I have two children, and this is just a hobby, and I don't want to go into a costly procedure with these people just because I have this hobby.
so
But on the other hand, I'm really not afraid for it either.
okay, so speaking of which, right, this is a hobby. It's obviously like, I mean, the extent of your work, I'd say that it's a pretty, like it's a pretty intense hobby. Um, I mean, have you done this, before with like any other, other aspects in your, like in your life, in your professional life? Have you ever found, you just like, have you ever sought out other scammers or anything like that, figured out that other people are scams and like put it all together and started exposing them?
No, 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 no. Yeah, good question. Nee, this is the first time, but I recognize the what I would call relentlessness. Um, when I dive into something, and it can either be, we just before we started the recording, we talked about the Smashing Pumpkins. When I start collecting and loving something, I'm going all the way, and so I built up a collection of posters and 800 something CDs of all types, and even the most obscure recordings they ever did in acetates and glass masters from the BBC, and I
Oh
mean,
my God.
then I go all the way, all the way, and this is ticking my feeling for injustice, and combined with my, well, let's say rather deep love for Bitcoin. If That's why I call myself on Twitter the sniper in the backyard of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I think that name suits me. I mean, the Bitcoin train is rolling, but there are all the time those type of scammers, and I call them affinity scams, because they use the Bitcoin name, and we can wait for them to die. But on the other hand, this guy is pretty annoying with his lawsuits. He has a billionaire backer putting a lot of effort in this guy, and helping him with those lawsuits. So I think it's fair to expect that somebody has to, well, let's call it shoot back, and bring out the information about this, scammery.
So most recently, I believe that I believe that didn't the case against Hodlnaut, didn't it have to get dropped or something like that? He
Nah, kind of. I'm following it a little bit from the sidelines, to be honest, because firstly, the guy wants to stay anonymous, and that's his good right, I think. And secondly, he does not want to post too much about it, and I think that's also because of the advice of his counsels. But if I understand the case right, Craig Wright started chasing him from England, and quickly Hodlnaut chased back, but from Norway. So there were actually two cases running at the same time. And so Craig had to handle two cases, and from 2 or 3 times in the UK he lost already, and one time in Norway he now lost also. And that means that it's a winning streak for Hodlnaut.
has
But it's not over yet.
no.
If you try to imply that.
Oh yeah, okay. You know that's what I was trying to figure out, because I thought I saw some biggish news recently, and I just don't recall exactly what it was, but I thought that it was something in Hodlnaut's favor. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but let me ask you this, because I'm just thinking about this. Do they has Craig Wright or Calvin themselves ever tried to contact you?
As far as I know, no,
No.
they didn't.
Have
Um, they, I know that Kelvin has mentioned my name at least twice. I mean, he blocked me on Twitter, so I do not follow. I
so
do not follow
so he
everything
knows who
from
you
him
are.
anymore. Yeah, he certainly does. And I still remember the moment when he blocked me. At first, I had him blocked, because when you block somebody, he will not be able to see your post so easily. And then you can still peek through and look at his post and make screenshots or reply every now and then he cannot see your reply. So I made fun of him. I made a lot of fun of him a lot. But at some point, several months ago, I unblocked him for a while. And because it was so hilarious again that Craig's counsel, Rivero Mestra, I think they're called, they had a motion, which the motions and all the court stuff in Florida, from Florida, is all public information on Court Listener website. So you can download every day, almost on the same day that it is released, then it becomes available already. And there was a beautiful few paragraphs from this guy, from these people, from his counsel, talking about, oh, Craig is hacked, and his information that he is throwing in the case is all forgeries and lies and blah blah blah. No, because he is hacked. And then they try to support him with this hacking nonsense. So I made a bit of a tweet storm about hacking, and the guy has never been hacked. Come on, he made all these forgeries himself.
Of course.
So I made and I tried to make Kelvin aware of this tweet storm. and I think I posted it a few times as reply on his nonsense that he posted on Twitter, and he never replied, but he just blocked me. Yeah,
That was that.
and Craig is, as you probably know, since long not anymore on Twitter. And Twitter is at the moment my my main medium, and mostly medium. Talking about medium, I did indeed a few days ago release a long article. And that was the first time that I do something on Medium, but Twitter is my only. I don't have the time. I mean, I have work also to do, and this is indeed a hobby, and every now and then a time-consuming hobby. But anyway, Craig is not on Twitter anymore, and I also remember the moment when Craig blocked me. That already goes back, I think, to 2017 somewhere. And I remember that I kept it a bit technical with him, talking about the layered structure of a protocol. And the only thing he said, what did he say? Loser, block. So that was the only interaction I ever had with Craig. I'm a loser.
Listen,
I'm a loser.
Everything can be done
on the
on the
other hand,
base.
he is, sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying. I was joking. I was saying everything can be done on the base layer. Continue.
Yeah, according to him, no. Nah, anyway, and I know that one or two, maybe more, but I have no insights in his private Slack room where he is keeping the cult a little bit together with his nonsense. But I have no account there, and I don't want an account there also. But every now and then screenshots got leaked from his private Slack room, so I know a little bit what's going on there. And I know they have been discussing me a few times, and some mild threatening about lawsuits and all the scammers. According Craig, I will chase them later for libel also, and blah blah blah. But so far he never did.
So speaking of which, Calvin put out a tweet like Thursday or something like that about how because of what's happening with BitMEX. Essentially that you see like what happens, like everybody everybody who's essentially against BSV is getting taken down by the law. It's just ironic.
Kind of. I mean, I kind of have to give it to them that they put a few subjects on the table that is, despite all the scammery and criminality that's going on there, they have brought a few things on the table that is kind of respectable in a way that it is good to be discussed. I mean, code is law, code is not law, that type of discussion, the bucket shops, as they call them. There is a, it's a bit painful to say maybe, but there is a few things that might make sense from their point of view, and it's completely ironical, as you said. The scammers and those criminals bring those subjects on the table.
It's funny that you mentioned that about that, right? Because essentially what they want is the casino on their blockchain. Like they essentially want all those things they're talking about, but they want to be the rulers of it. So what they do, which is interesting, is use because language is very important, right? You can trick a lot of people with language, and that's, I think, exactly what they're doing. Like I believe that they've tricked people with the language that they're using. And it's, because by using that language, it implies that, Bitcoin is the opposite of those things, by saying, the lawfulness and all these things, it implies, essentially it implies that, oh, well, all these other things are not. So it's vindictive. They're not stupid with what they're doing, but it's definitely disingenuous.
I think you're nailing it here. Yeah, it's also what I think if you talk about what I wanted to start. Yeah, sorry, I'm
That's
from the
okay.
Netherlands, so English is not my first language, and then I start with a Dutch
And then
sentence, and
translate.
then I try to quickly translate how do oh shit, how do we say that in hey, but it's weird to see those people who have this background for years um, in all types of scammery, plagiarism, money laundering, being having verdicts, having paid penalties for the tax, have been running from the United States. Calvin has been on the top 10 most wanted criminal list, I think 2012, 2017 era, for money laundering and stuff like that. And then you see those people bringing this message against Bitcoin, who is, and on top of that, they claim to have the real Bitcoin. I mean, my
It's
God.
insane. It's completely insane. It's very scary. So okay, so what you just said about Calvin being on Most Wanted. So let me ask you this: is Calvin? Do you know if Calvin Ayers is actually his real name?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think so. I think
You
so.
think
As
so?
far as I know, I
I,
did
I
not
I
do.
was told it wasn't, but I don't have any credible source to back that up. So
Oh yeah, nee. As far as I know, I to be honest, I don't do all the research back. Um I mean, I'm mostly concentrating on Craig Wright,
yeah.
but I did some research on the guy, and nee, as far as I know, I did a few tweet storms about him, and even a longer one to map out all the closest. What I call the fraud squad, the people close to Craig, which is Jimmy, Stephen Matthews, Kelvin Ayre, Jimmy Nguyen, those people, and I tried to find out when did they meet and how did they meet and in what year, what did they do, what companies did they work. So I brought some stuff out about it, but for the rest I leave it a little bit aside, because my feeling. I cannot prove it, and I don't want to be nailed down for libel or something like that
Mm.
about this subject. But my gut feeling says that the story might be bigger than we think,
Yeah.
because I mean, Calvin, whatever you say about him, he's not stupid, but he is stupid enough somehow to support a guy who is running from the Australian taxation office and their criminal investigation. So he never went back to Australia anymore. Calvin surely knows how that works, because he never went back to America also. So he's probably expecting a sealed indictment in America. So you won't see him there. But again, I have never found any proof that Calvin is not using his real name.
Hmm.
It's the other way around. He used another name two
Mm-hmm.
times, at least what I know. One time and I have to say it right, in Thailand, where
Mm-hmm.
he set up something that was a bit shady, and he fled the
No way.
country under a different name. And in the early days of Bodog, where he started his gambling empire with, he also used a kind of an actor name, and I don't recall the name to be honest, but he played a kind of adventurer under a different name, and he did a lot of crazy stuff, and it all went to the press, but it was only meant as a marketing trick to bring the Bodog brand to the forefront. But
Interesting.
Calvin Ayre, again, is his real name, as far as I know.
Okay, so since you've done the majority of the research on Craig Wright,
Mhm.
I've thought of this many times. Why, um, I mean, why would he claim that he's Satoshi? From all the research that you've done, like what do you think the actual motivation is? And the strange thing is that I thought of this. I'm like, okay, well, maybe he did it because Calvin kind of talked him into it because they needed to create that side chain, or they tried to take over Bitcoin. I always get confused and end up going around in circles. So
Yeah, nee, yeah, nee, but this is a beautiful question, because this gives me a chance to go deep into something that I hardly talk about. Yeah, unless you are a dedicated follower and read all my tweets, then you probably understand what I'm going to tell you. But I'll try to keep it brief. No, it was actually way before Calvin came on board. And although he knew Calvin for a bit already, Calvin started supporting him in 2015, but he started already playing Satoshi, faketoshi, in late 2013. And that means that Calvin has nothing to do with this. But how did this grow? And this is a beautiful story. So sit down, relax, take a beer.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it has grown. And because Craig is a personality that when he start lying, he just can't stop anymore. When somebody is nailing him down on a lie, he will try to come up with an even more brazen lie to cover up the previous lie. And when he's being called out on that more brazen lie, he will start with 2 brazen lies on top of that. So how did this grow? Back in 2013, he wanted to start what I would say a kind of legit business, a kind of Bitcoin bank, let's call it like that. And but there is not so much material about it. So I cannot fully say that I'm 100% correct, but as far as I can see, he could not find so many investors, and he needed quite a few million to bring out those ideas and start a company and etc. And then he thought, let's set up a tax fraud, and that grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And within that tax fraud, he first was let's say an early miner. And then he had to start explaining how do you get those tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin that you claim to have, and that you never spend and you never send back and forth to people. But at first he was doing something with mining. Then later he also brought up it's a combination of 2 stories, and I have to tell it right. And now we get to the subject of the Tulip Trust, because the Tulip Trust,
yes.
People think that the Tulip Trust has always been there also. No, but it's intertwined with this faketoshi stuff a bit. So at some point he started hinting, and that was not because somewhere late 2012 is where he started with those Bitcoin bank ideas. And in the start of 2013, before Dave Kleiman died in April, there was pretty much nothing going on, just him and his idea. Dave Kleiman was not involved. And only after Dave Kleiman died, he picked up WK, an old company, in 2011 that he had with Dave Kleiman. And from there, it slowly grew to, I have a lot of Bitcoin, and I did Bitcoin mining with Dave Kleiman. And and how early? Yeah, pretty early. How early? You cannot be so early. And you have full control over those Bitcoin? Yeah, I have full control over those Bitcoin. Can you sign? That's what the ATO asked. It never happened, those signings. So in the end, he felt confident enough to start claiming that he was Satoshi. But he did not do that from the start. In 2012, he was not Satoshi. He was just a random guy with a Bitcoin bank idea. And only late, very, very late 2013, and the real first hint, I think, is an email that he sent to Ira Kleiman, the brother of late Dave Kleiman at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he said, Dave Kleiman and I have been very important in creating and bringing Bitcoin to the market, so to say. And that's where we see the first clear hint that he was trying to be Satoshi. And intertwined in this is also this tulip trust thing, because that's where he is supposed to have all that Bitcoin that he never mined and never bought, whatever he's saying about this. And where people think, yeah, but you already had this stuff in 2011 or earlier. No, that was also because the ATO started pressing him on some tax that he had to pay on those many Bitcoins that he had. And he said, yeah, but I've been doing this and invoice and here and there. And oh, yeah, but then if you do it like this, then you have to pay, I think, 1.6 million Australian dollar in tax. And Craig was like, oops, that is not what I want. I want money from you and not the other way around. So then he came up with this tulip trust idea, where he put from the start, from 2009 mining, so the Satoshi mining, and that's how he pushed his Bitcoin as far away as far as possible. So it's a bit of two stories, but it has grown on him. Same as the tulip trust. It grew because he had to lie and cover up about previous things that he was saying.
That's incredible. I
Yeah,
mean that is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, so
yeah,
he pretty much like trapped himself into this by,
yeah,
just by simply. I mean, if you look at it, it's like all he had to do was just simply take responsibility for one particular action, and now wouldn't have to dig this grave. So I have this theory. I have this theory that they use BSV to launder money. I have no proof for that, but I feel like it's like it's like, what does that blockchain really do? You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, so.
I know what you mean, and like I said, I cannot say too much, also because I don't know too much. But
No, me
yeah, of
neither.
course, you have your thoughts about it. When you know, for example, that Mr. Kelvin is mentioned in the Panama Papers and stuff like that. Well, then you know already that when they think and you read how they find details in the Panama Papers about his wheelings and dealings, and how you know that he was on the top 10 and for money laundering on the top 10 criminals list. Yeah, then you know already the guy is until his neck, until his forehead in shady business. And what I learn about Craig Wright is what those people do to cover up in the books, with clever bookkeeping, is build a lot of companies, do
Yep.
all kinds of transactions between those companies, and then create a kind of a snake with a long tail, a chain of companies, push the money forward and explode at the end your tail from the body, because, well, that's worth nothing anymore. And that's how you whitewash money going forward, and bring, for example, tax money that you claim back, quickly push it forward to another entity, and then poof with the previous entity, and tax money bye bye, and nobody can chase you anymore. And those type of tricks, and I know them much longer already because I've worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers as an accountant, and I was not a forensic or that type of expert or
Hmm.
something, but I know how bookkeeping and tricks in bookkeeping, how that works a bit. And when you look at all the figures of those old companies, if you know that in the Panama Papers, Calvin is also mentioned with a lot of companies and pushing hundreds and hundreds of millions forward in those companies, and you see them using the same trick over and over and over and over again, and especially the trick, do not let a company become profitable, because if it becomes profitable, you have to pay tax, and we
That's
don't
right.
want to pay tax. So you see all those companies, and you see it the same with Enchain, you see it with Tal. They are seriously not profitable companies.
They
Of
just
course,
cost
they don't.
money.
Yeah, because they just want to um,
Clean money.
At least avoid the tax. Let's say it nicely.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, I'm not allowed to say money laundering because I cannot really put my finger on it because
No.
I don't know the sources where it comes from. What they do is also, and let's say it like this: it are money laundering tricks that I see happening without being able to say if it is money laundering what they are doing. Okay, let's keep it that way. They built a string of companies. A lot of them are overseas, offshore, in Seychelles, Cayman Islands. You know, all those countries where you expect the companies to be. Australia, Europe, UK, America, Canada. It's hard for them to chase them there because they cannot touch your stuff in those countries. And for example, Enchain, I think last year, it's called the Ultimate Beneficial Owner, UBO, I think. If you try to figure out for all those companies, and I did that lately for Enchain, if you try to figure out the ultimate beneficial owner, I think Cayman Islands, you know, and already the mother company of Enchain is Antigua. Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and like I said, I cannot trace the money itself because I don't know the bank accounts. I don't know which banks they are using. So, like I said, I cannot put my finger on that part. But from a little bit more distance, it smells, it feels, it quacks, it walks like a duck. You know.
Yeah, I mean, look. So personally, where I grew up and the people I grew up with, I learned a lot about. I grew up with a lot of scammers, and you know, like I got to learn a lot about them, and it's just, you know, like you said, it has all the red flags, right? And you know, someone like me, you know, someone like you is not close enough to the action, let's say, to, you know, exactly pinpoint all the pieces, but we can see the general idea, and that's very interesting. So, okay, you mentioned where you worked before. Now, you told us at the beginning when you got into Bitcoin, but so I guess my follow-up question to go back around to the beginning is that, so I don't think that you came to Bitcoin from a technical aspect. Like, what is it that attracted you to this space?
Yeah, no, yeah, that is also because it suits me like a glove.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, seriously. And indeed, it's not the technical aspect, but more the economical and community aspect. Yeah, that is how I would summarize it. Just to give you, this is an anecdote that not many people know. Yeah, of course, in my family, but for the rest, nobody knows this. But when I started working, I mentioned PricewaterhouseCoopers. I have been working there for several years, but I still remember the moment when I left school and I went there for the first working day. The manager that hired me at that moment was ill, and he was out for a few weeks. And nobody dared to say anything about me to this guy because I think this guy was in hospital at that moment even. And at some point, I think it was 3 weeks later, he came back in office, and this guy called me in and he said, "Arthur, I'm hearing stories and I know what they mean. You cannot have that long hair in a ponytail here at this office, at this Pricewater in office."
That's awesome.
And I had a tattoo. I had an ear ring. I was driving a shopper, a custom built shopper bike, and that's how I went to work to PricewaterhouseCoopers, where they have the BMW lease cars, you know. So yeah, of course, I have always been a bit of an I don't know, recalcitrant. I don't know if that's a good English word. A bit
like a rebel.
kind of rebellish. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think so. And when it comes to money, because I'm a financial guy, like I said, my career started at PricewaterhouseCoopers, but after that, I was controller at a large international transport company. I worked 20 years at an IT company where I managed projects in well, mostly in my home country, but also abroad, even in South America and in other parts of Europe, England. But anyway, where was I heading? Yeah, this rebel thing. The IT company where I worked was also a bit rebellish. They were the rebels, kind of a small company against all the big Microsofts and etc. etc. Now, not especially more the Baswares of this world, and they kicked their asses out of big companies because they were small and rebellish. And yeah, I like that atmosphere somehow. And Bitcoin for me is rebel money. I mean, they call it "fuck you" money here and there, but I would call it rebel money. It is if you do not like authority so much, and well, I have that fetish, to be honest.
Yep. Me
Yeah,
too.
no, yeah, that's also what you would hardly because it's from my earlier youth, but I've been taken in a few times because I jumped over fences at military air shows because I didn't like military air shows. They took me in for blocking the road against nuclear arms. I mean, those type of things from my early youth. I was a bit rebellish, peaceful. I mean, I've never used violence because I'm not a violent guy. But yeah, if I do not agree with something and I do not agree with how fiat money works, yeah, then Bitcoin suited me like a glove, and I will never ever forget. I I when I made a comparison between Mount Gox and Bitstamp, it was 2012, 13, 2013, yeah. And I went to Bitstamp, luckily, because like a few months later, Mount Gox poop, belly up. But when I bought my first Bitcoin on Bitstamp, I can still feel how I felt back then, and it's 7 years ago now. It felt like an bye bye world.
Yeah.
I'm doing it my way. I cannot fully find the good English words for that, but it was an yeah, you call it red pilled and going down the rabbit hole and things like that. But in fact, it works and it worked like that with me. Yeah,
I totally agree. I definitely remember the first time I ever purchased Bitcoin, and I know what you mean by not finding the words, because even when you have, and I don't think I have a great mastering of the English language. I think I'm decent. Yeah, I could hold my own. Considering it's my secondary language, but
right.
it's you know it's kind of like an aha moment. At that moment, like it's like the light just turned on and you realize like this changes everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
even then it still doesn't express the true the I guess the true feeling of what you're thinking or even what you're feeling at that moment.
It's you're entering a kind of an alternative financial universe that yeah, and I'm saying it again that fit me like a glove. Um, how it should be. And there's still a long road to go. We're not there, but you already have a good sense. And although you only know 1%, maybe less than 1% of what is going on out there, and I've learned so much, it's unbelievable since then. And still, I think I'm not, probably not even halfway. But it already felt that it already felt like yeah, bye bye old world and welcome new world, and this is where we should go. Yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree. I 100%, like it definitely opened up a whole new world, you know.
Mm.
So okay, so let me ask you this then. Is there because it seems to me that you focus all your efforts into what's going on into the Craig Wright saga. Are there any other projects that you're or people that you're looking at possibly
Yeah, I'm.
that you can share?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, not yeah. uh, yeah, no, indeed, there is a few things that I'm not allowed to share by contract, and also not because I would not be happy. It would not make me happy to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet. But it's all nah. It has more to do with NDA type of things, and no. But what I can say is that last year I started a project with a few friends, with 3 friends, that what we want to what we want to do is we want to buy a bank, a legacy
Oh
bank, and
yeah.
turn them into a Bitcoin friendly bank. And I'm not posting so much about it anymore because we think we have a workable solution to be able to start doing this next year. We have on our hit list an investment fund and a legacy bank, and in combination we will have all the licenses needed to make a legacy bank more Bitcoin friendly, and bring products that legacy banks don't want or are not allowed, and if they are allowed are not so eager to work with, and make a change there. And yeah, that's also, that's my work. That's what I'm working on.
So
And yeah.
I gotta ask you, what have been the I now that you mention it, I totally remember seeing that tweet when you put it out, and I was like, man, that is ambitious. So I gotta ask you, what have been some of the challenges in doing this?
Two things mainly. Mostly the Corona. We
Yeah.
had a few people that we were talking with in back in March, April, and they postpone making decisions. And yeah, the window of opportunity to buy these banks is not forever. The one bank that we are looking at on top of our list is a guy who is going to retire, who is now the owner, the 100% shareholder. Yeah, I think minus 1% because some CEO or something is also holding some shares. Um, but yeah, we are looking for serious investors. It runs in many millions, and the total project is around 50 million. Yeah, for some that's peanuts, and for most that is not peanuts. So when you'll find small investors who are willing to invest maybe 100 or 200,000 or half a million, then you cannot get there. And if you have a serious party behind you, then at least you can get there. But we did not manage to find one. My name is not well known enough to be able to for that well-known venture capitalists are opening their wallet for me. And the same was for my friends. We have no track record of successful businesses, and not even for unsuccessful businesses, we have no track records. So yeah, that makes it a bit harder. Then we wanted to do a crowdfunding, and that was the second point where we unfortunately bumped our nose. That was with the platform Bank to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
We were in touch with them, I think last year, since November, December around, and they advised us go find a lead investor first, and with a lead investor come to our platform, and if let's say 25% is already covered, then you're going to have no issues with getting the other 75% covered, because you already have one giving the signal this is a serious plan, and a serious business plan, and with a serious backer already. Now, yeah, in the moment, somewhere in April, I think May or something,
Mm-hmm.
when we came back to Bank to the Future platform, uh, then they said, well, but we're not going to help you anyway. I was like, huh? What? Seriously? And yeah, we only got one email, and they gave a list of 5 reasons, and they said, pick the one that suits you most. So they had 5 bullets, and I'm quite sure that I know which bullet it is, which is called conflict of interest. Because yeah, they are of course also doing those type of things, and they have their own backers and people who are doing those type of things. So if they allow us to raise 50 million on their platform, then yeah, then we are going to be their competitor, and that's what we don't want. So yeah, of course there is then a conflict of interest, and yeah, and then we had to return to ourselves and find our way in a network, and trying to find investors.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
50 million bucks. I got to tell you, man, I can't I don't know enough people to come up with that. So,
No, don't worry, don't worry. We are busy with something that will hopefully bring us there.
very nice.
It might take a little time, but I'm quite comfortable with how it's going now, and we have a good outlook. Let's say it like that.
Cool. Hey, look, that's persistence. Persistence is key, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, and there you see it again. Relentless.
Yep.
Because if I have this idea, then I want to fight for it, and left, right, up, down, and try to find a way to make it happen.
So let me ask you this. In how long do you think that this Bitcoin bank that you're thinking of, in how long realistically do you think it could exist? Like, do you think in 5 years from now, in 10 years, 2 years?
How when we will make it this happen?
Yeah,
Yeah, nee, I presume, I predict, yeah, nee, next year, 2021.
man, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that will be the year that we're going to be able to do this. If it goes like I see it happening now, then I can see it happen
That's fantastic.
in next year. Nee, I first, because that is also an interesting question, which makes me also, it goes a bit deeper. How long do you even think that banks will exist anyway? I mean,
Yeah.
long term, and I find it also a very interesting question, because that is a critic that I get every now and then. Why bank? We don't need banks with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin means be your own bank. And
Mm,
I do not fully agree with that, because services, financial services like insurances, like futures, like bonds, like security tokens, there are so many difficult stuff in finance, derivatives, and mention it. And all those type of things, that is for a more professional market, which is indeed a third party that you have to trust with those things, but backed by a Bitcoin platform, it could and should still work. And in that sense, I think banks will make a dramatic change in the upcoming 5 or 10 years. The Yeah, Bitcoin will help kick their asses, but people like me and my friends, in from two from IT, Bitcoin, which is my half, and the other two are bankers, but with a good heart for Bitcoin. But they sit on the table with the European Central Bank, and they have. Experience in several banks in Europe. They have been treasurers, and kind of high good people working with legacy banks, but they know what. Being a digital bank, being an online bank, being a Bitcoin bank, working with crypto assets, they want to go that road also. So that's where we meet. I'm more the hardcore crypto Bitcoin guy with my friend, and those two people, and we meet, and we had an immediate click, and we discussed the plans, and we built a business plan and a private placement memorandum, and it worked like a charm, and we worked really hard last year to get this done. And then I'm stuck, and then I want to make it happen. And if you talk about what do you follow in the Bitcoin space, yeah, of course, ArthurVanPelt. I've tried to reach out to Caitlin Long, and try to meet her, and try to have a
mm-hmm.
discussion with her about things. And yeah, of course, also hoping that she might know investors that might want to help us, or if she wanted to have a footprint on another continent with us, we would happy to join her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that never materialized. And well, it's fine. It's fine. We will manage, and we will do it our own way. And if we meet in the future, we will meet and shake hands and become friends. If it is to me, I mean, I don't see that thing as being competitive to other Bitcoin parties working in banking, because in the end, we all want the same, and that is revolutionize finance with Bitcoin.
Yeah. No, I definitely I want to go back to something you said at really what that is that, to your point, banks as they are today will die, but their role will change. So they won't, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that they'll disappear. It's that their current use case disappears and it evolves or pivots, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
have a choice. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think, you you touched the nail on the head there for,
No, I think
other use cases of a bank.
it's a bit of both. I think software and artificial intelligence and stuff like that will slowly make the human side and the smart contracts, those type of things will make a part of the banking business obsolete anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the role as an advisor, because then at some point it's money goes from A to B, money is stuck in a custody account, and a lot of fancy things happen with that money. But in the end, it also needs an advisor to help you understand what is happening with that money. If it is called euro, US dollar, uh, Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, or Bitcoin, you still need advice. So banks will become more and more, they will have offerings in finance, but a lot of that will be automated and in digital banks. And the people working, the flesh and blood working at the bank, are the people who understand how finance work, and they will be more advisors instead of, hey, here is your contract. We earn 10%, you earn nothing, and our CEO runs away with a lot of dividends and a salary of 30 million per year. Those times will be over, I hope, in 5 to 10 years, when banks indeed have to reconsider their position in the market.
Yeah, and possibly earn the fees that people are paying them, because
Yeah,
I believe that today we currently exist in a system where banks just simply gouge you for poor service quality, and you just pretty much have no choice but to take it.
yeah.
Or you can go and be poorly served by another bank, but you're going to be, either way, you're going to be poorly served by one of them.
Yeah, and in the meantime, they do stuff with your money that is, sometimes disgusting. I mean, we just see JPM getting 920 million
Yeah,
fine for their shady stuff that they have been doing in the precious metals. I mean,
that's
my
right.
goodness, crazy.
It absolutely is.
This type, I can feel it already. This stuff makes me mad, really.
Oh, 100%. It's unbelievable because, right, I feel they criminalize, right? The mainstream media criminalizes, Bitcoin and quote unquote cryptocurrency.
Mm,
But yet the banks get a slap on the wrist for providing the rails to money laundering all
mm,
around the world.
mm,
And they get caught, and okay, paying the fine is business as usual for them.
mm, yeah.
So
Yeah, they
it's
earn
very
5 billion.
hypocritical.
They earn 5 billion over the years, and they pay a fine of 1 billion.
Meh. Yeah, exactly. And they get to continue to create money out of thin air,
Yeah,
right? So at the same time, so
nobody goes to
it's
jail.
like, I'm sorry.
Nobody goes to jail.
No,
Nobody gets fired. Nobody, and if they get fired, then they will get a nice bonus to live on an island with their wife and children.
It's so frustrating. It really is.
Yeah.
So, man, look, our hour has flown by. I really appreciate you coming on to chat. This has been awesome. So before we leave each other, do you have any final words you want to leave with the listeners?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned it. If people are happy to hear my voice also in a written type, you can find me on my Legacy Kit on Twitter. I will not tell so much about this private stuff, which I'm happy to do in this podcast, by the way. In that sense, it was a really special podcast for me. But if you want to follow my Craig Wright work, all the debunks, all the summaries, all the jokes about Craig Wright and the BSV environment, as long as it is around, I hope in 1 or 2 years they won't be around anymore and they will be jobless with this hobby. But yeah, we have to see about it. Yeah, please follow me on my Legacy Kit. That's it.
Cool. So look, I'm going to obviously I'm going to post a link to your Twitter in the show notes. And Arthur, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Phil. See you around. And thanks again.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed my chat with Arthur Van Pelt at My Legacy Kit. His contact details will be in the show notes. And of course, if you want to reach me on Twitter or Telegram, I am at Coinicarus. If you want to shoot me an email, I am coinicarus@funwithbitcoin.com. Thank you all for listening and catch you all next time.